And welcome to Brown Meets World.
When it's Brown Meets World.
Your Boy Meets World fan cast. Welcome to episode 46. I'm Siege.
And I'm your boy, Tony Coitus.
Sadie Coitus.
Coitus, yeah.
Tony Coitus. I like
With
it.
a Jersey accent.
How you been?
You know what? Living better now. Gucci sweaters now. Drop top
for
the man.
you.
I'm the man, girlfriend.
Oh, so I'm not gonna lie. My new Wi-Fi is what's your name? What's your sign in?
Oh,
yeah, right, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I got it.
Well, as you know, I had my Wi-Fi name be I could eat a peach for hours.
Yes.
For several years.
Yes.
And now, because of some activities with my dog, it's now called Dog Fart Kingdom. But yeah, I
love the subtlety in that. You're like some things that
I really like having a Wi-Fi name that, well, like the neighbors are trying to connect. They're like, "Who the fuck is?" You know, that's the whole. That's the goal.
There you go. There you go. I like. You ready to talk about this episode?
Yeah, let's jump right in.
All right. So it's funny because earlier you and I were talking about this, and this episode, there's a lot to discuss, but I also feel like this is just a part 2.
It is. It definitely feels like the part 2. Well, last week you were even saying, like, this episode feels incomplete.
It does. It felt like I don't know, and I would like. We should have done our research again.
2
but like,
seconds of damn research on the Wikipedia, guys.
But like, if this was like, an hour-long special or something, that would make more sense. But like,
or I wonder if, because you know, I feel like in reruns we would get that to be continued, whereas on Netflix I don't necessarily.
That's what
know
I'm saying. It's like I don't know for sure.
Sorry,
I will say that I don't know if I said this to you, but I was listening to another podcast, my friend's podcast that I thought the Batman podcast we talked about before, and they were like, "We're not experts, we're fans."
Yeah, and I really hope that rings true, guys.
I was like, it's like we are fans, not experts, because so many of you, and I love it, so many of you are like, if you were to simply just do a Boy Meets World wiki search.
So, having done this Boy Meets World wiki search, I can say that this did air on 2 separate weeks.
Okay. So
we had one that aired on May 12th of 95, and the episode we were about to review, May 19th of 1995.
Okay, wow. 1995, yo.
95.
Crazy.
Like, think, what's that? Gangster's Paradise?
Ooh.
95?
Yeah, which means, maybe because Gangster's Paradise was on the
Dangerous Mind
soundtrack, so maybe that's why we got a Mr. Turner taking in a student, and like,
yeah.
They were like, this is it, this is our genre.
Yeah, 23 now, will I live to see 24? The way things are going, I don't know.
Here's the thing, that song, even now, like when I listen to it, it's like it feels like it's a bop, but at the same time you're like, yo, he's talking about some serious stuff.
And much like the Biggie song, it's that one that people know when you play it.
Yeah.
Yo, guys.
Been spending most of our lives.
Oh,
sorry.
that was great.
Sorry. All right, so let's get into this. All right, let's do the Tell Me About It.
Tell me about it. Tell me all about the show. Shawn don't have his daddy, and Mr. Turner take him in. Sorry.
You should have said take him home.
Take him home.
It would have
I ruined it, guys.
It would have been so great. All right, so this is season 2, episode 23, Home. It's been 3 weeks since Chet left Shawn with the Matthews, and everyone is beginning to lose their patience, including Shawn. Feeling constrained by the Matthews rules, Shawn takes off into the night, but is soon apprehended by the cops. He lies and tells them that he's staying with Turner, an arrangement that becomes true once Chet makes it clear that he's not coming home.
Question, do police just take kids home?
I know, well, like, not white kids.
I was going to say, like, usually they're like, I mean, they come home in like a body bag or something. But like, this is just a whole new...
White kids are brought home.
Yeah,
but also, what I thought it was weird is he didn't take him home. He was like, Shawn was like, I'm staying with my teacher in this apartment building on the 5th floor, and Cop was like, cool, makes sense. Yeah, students stay with their teachers. I like.
This episode really, I feel, is such a great segue into the next season because, like, I don't know if you felt it, but I felt such like this like dramatic shift
Yes.
from just the kind of filler bullshit, like
Yeah.
trying to get popular episodes we've been seeing, all that griff
Yeah.
fantasy, whatever. Like this felt so grounded and so serious in a way that's really like defining of what the rest of the show is going to be.
It made me have a lot of questions when I was watching it, and not a lot of questions in the sense that we're usually like, where it's like, who, like, where'd you get this money,
Yeah.
and who had an entire boxing ring brought into the gym without
100%.
being noticed? Like, it didn't have those like questions. It had me really ask myself, like, what's Turner's motivation, and like,
Yeah.
how does it feel? And we're really going to get into this. One of the things that I think is interesting is we don't really have a roll call for this episode,
Which is great. I mean, it wouldn't make sense, I don't think, to introduce new characters in the season finale.
Yeah.
They really kind of did their best to wrap up everyone's storylines best as possible. Although Eric never gets a conclusion.
Not really. What I think is interesting is we really see everyone in the cast, with the exception of
TP,
Topanga, and the kind of crew.
Yeah, that's true.
Those are the two that we don't really get. I mean, and again, it wouldn't make sense for them to be there at all.
Well, those
but we get Jason, and we get. I'm just saying, like,
more side characters. But yeah, Jason was in there.
Yeah. So I just thought that was very interesting. All right. One of the things that, let me just go to my notes here. First of all, have you ever stayed with other people's parents, or like had to be under other people's parents' rules?
You know, I have a lot of cousins, so like whenever someone had to go somewhere or watch someone, you need to just get dropped off at aunties, or we have a bunch of cousins come over to the house, and it's one of those things like, it's family, of course, but like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month,
yeah.
Family's like, yo, the water's thick enough.
Water's thick enough.
Yeah, like,
I like it.
Yeah, like get out. So I mean, I think
never heard that movie, but I
just made it up.
Water's thick enough.
But yeah, and I think we all kind of knew, and Shawn knew in the last episode when they were proposed this solution, quote unquote.
Yeah.
That this wouldn't be something that would be easy for anyone, even though Corey was very excited about it at the time.
I will say, even what's interesting is this episode. The last 2 episodes are really good, but what this episode did in my mind was it brought Shawn back up to kind of a star. Of the, like, you know, it's like we've always known that Corey and Shawn's relationship is a star of the show, but this really brings Shawn's storyline to the forefront in a way that, like, even with the Cherry Bomb episode, it's like, what's Corey going to do?
Yeah.
In relation to Shawn's mistakes.
And I mean, we definitely feel like we're light years away from the first season, but like you had mentioned, Shawn hardly got any kind of special treatment or storylines other than the Cherry Bomb one in that season. And he is the central conflict for the season wrap-up.
Yeah.
So just a huge shift from what we saw last season of him just kind of being that character, that lunchroom kid too, essentially.
Yeah.
And, you know, and him really just shining. And I love everything that's going on with his family. It's just, it's so deep, it's so rich.
Very interesting, and it's very real.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I brought it up, it's like, I was like, have you ever stayed with anyone or had people who were your guardians who weren't your parents for an extended period of time?
And I honestly don't think I had.
And the reason why I said that is because I had, and the thing is, I was much older. When I first moved to New York, my roommate at the time, her parents came to live with us while we were getting established. And it was like maybe a week. But it was excruciating because I have a different set of parents, and I have a different set of, like, what it means to have someone who's a parental figure in your life.
Yeah.
And she had, like, Corey's parents. She had very attentive, very involved. This is when the family is eating. This is where the family is going this way and that way. And me, a kid of a single mom, I was just like, I don't, like, what do you mean? Like, I have to sit at the table, or I have to eat this. It's just, it was a lot of control that I wasn't used to.
Sure.
And I really understood Shawn's, like, anxiousness and like that caginess that he felt.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's one thing to have to follow your parents' rules or to be someone's house guest, but when you are there for an extended period of time and you're like now under someone else's parents, like, you know, you are their child, it's a struggle. It's a really, really hard thing to do.
And I really love how they made it so it wasn't that Shawn wanted his old home. It wasn't that he wanted a new home. He just literally wanted to be free. He wanted to be as free as a stray dog howling at the moon at night. That whole scene, which I'm sure we'll talk about more.
Yeah.
I just really, I love how his free spirit and Turner's free spirit kind of were able to meet and come to compromise.
Oh, we're gonna come there because I have a observation I want to bring back. But before we get there, talking about the whole feeling Cajun, or when we get to that stray dog metaphor, what I realized, I was like, I mean, he's kind of like Chet.
Yes.
I mean, like, it's
very
very reflective of Chet. Like, Chet, everything we know about Chet is like can't be tied down. I mean, he specifically didn't want to bring Shawn because it's like, I gotta find my Verna. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Which that logic we'll absolutely get back to as well. But yeah, I thought that too. I thought that Shawn was maybe even without him noticing, taking on a lot of his dad's qualities.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely,
yeah, real interesting stuff.
And I do like, as usual, we always have this thing we've talked about earlier in the seasons where Amy's the super parent and Alan's just like, but I do like that you have Amy, at least, like, she's equally frustrated, but she's trying to embrace and make Shawn feel like at home, even though he's clearly doing things like the whole drinking out of the milk carton, which again, I love that they don't just show it as Shawn does it and it's like, who were you raised by? Shawn does it and he goes, oh, my dad's, he tells you who he's raised by. He goes, my dad's whole motto is a cup. Who you trying to impress?
Which I thought was hilarious, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. But it tells a lot about where he comes from.
And I love the scene of Amy opening the fridge and you seeing all the cartons that have been labeled with an S, just to kind of let you know that, like, this is part of what the Matthews have been having to accommodate, as well as what Shawn's having to accommodate, because it hasn't been easy for anyone.
Exactly. And it's like it's one of those things where even later on he goes, I want to like clip my toenails at the dinner table without being judged. It's a small thing where it's like they are accommodating. Everyone's like, no one's like yelled at him for these things.
Sure.
But you still know that you're being judged.
And I actually really liked how they used Morgan, who
yes,
I'm pretty certain this is her last episode.
I'm pretty sure this is the last time we see her too.
This Morgan anyway.
Yeah.
But how they used Morgan was they had her like eating ice cream, saying that, oh, Shawn said he could eat ice cream for breakfast, showing just how like even Morgan is getting influenced by Shawn and how the parents deal with that. Because that's initially what gets Alan fired up.
Yeah. No, I mean,
and I did feel that Alan was, even though he was a little less patient than Amy, had every right to feel and ask all those questions.
No. I think that one of the interesting things is, in this situation, no one's wrong. Like Amy even goes, well, Shawn didn't ask for this. You know, it's like, it's not like he's doing this on purpose. She understands that. And
Alan even understands that it's Chet. It's really,
and he goes, I'm not mad at him. I'm mad at Chet, who would do this. But I also feel like it's this thing where Alan's panicking in a way. Yeah. Alan's like, again, he's like, oh, another mouth to feed. And it's like, I'm barely keeping me and my family together.
Yeah.
With my coupons and like my discount and all this other stuff. Now I have another mouth to feed. Chet's not contributing anything. And if we're gonna keep like having two sets, one for Shawn and one for the family, that's double the amount that I'm having to pay for.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like he's panicking a little in his mind. And Amy's like, I know, but it will make it work.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, we will make it
work. And I feel like that's what makes this episode such a strong episode, is because every single character is relatable. Down to Jonathan and Kat.
Yeah.
Down to even Eric, even though he was as dumb as he's ever been. You could relate to him panicking for a test. I don't think
he was as dumb as he's ever been. I feel like Eric...
He didn't get his name right.
Yeah, but I think I want to get into that a little bit later, because I feel like there's a lot of truth in Eric's storyline. it's just the sad thing to me is that it's played for laughs and never addressed for
As a
the
serious issue.
problem that it is.
Totally.
But to go back to the Matthews and Shawn, it's funny because like we even start the episode off with Corey being the one like, Shawn, wrap it up. I have to get ready too, and it's like
Such a
Corey's
stark contrast from Corey in the last episode.
Yeah.
We're like, I can't wait for this.
exactly. Well, it's all not only that, but like Corey for the most part throughout the episode, he's very supportive of like whatever Shawn wants to do, but it doesn't mean he's not getting tired of it. Like
Sure.
even when he's at school and Mr. Turner's like, "Hey, how's it going?" He's like, "Yeah."
Well, I think even Corey kind of understands that, like, Shawn, if we kind of go back to that stray dog scene, Corey is trying to understand how to help his friend is the best way he can, and try to say, like, hey, like, you want a home, you would want some place where you can feel safe, where you have people around who love you, trying to keep him from going too far to that side of the tracks that we all know Shawn is capable of going.
So
towards.
you know what? That brings me to, I want to just make one note and then let's go to the stray dog conversation.
Yeah.
Because we keep hinting around it. But the one thing I want to say is when Turner is talking to Corey, he goes, "Don't forget, my offer still stands. If you need me or anything, give me a call."
Yes.
And Feeney's like, "So the students have your home number?" And he's like, "Well, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be there and I'm trying to care." And he's like, "I'm his teacher." And Mr. Feeney's like, "You're right. You're his teacher."
Yeah.
Like, and
I wrote that down too because we were talking about teachers texting students.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I wonder what Feeney would think about student-teacher
I have
text
a
conversation.
Feeney would like not be about
Yeah.
this at all. But like, yeah, he goes, "You're his teacher and only his teacher."
Yeah.
And I was like, I honestly remember I was like, no one's wrong. I'm on Feeney's side.
Totally.
If I'm being honest.
But if you're Jonathan, you're not just gonna let Shawn.
I mean, and I get that, but again, it comes back to how many times can you do this?
And also,
Shawn's not going to be the only student that this happens with.
Yeah, and I don't know what the climate was like in 1995, but I would also feel like I need to protect myself and my job and my reputation from anything that could be looked at in a scandalous way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're right. I don't know. We've had a different, we're in a completely different climate, a completely different world, as we often talk about. But I feel that this episode, what Turner does, it's looked at for what it's intended to be, which is purely
to be helpful.
Yeah, to be helpful. That's what it is. It's like it's meant to be someone who's like, I see a student, I see a kid who's basically been abandoned, and I relate to that in some way. And
you know what? I really wish throughout all the bullshit of the season, there had been something about Jonathan's past to come up to make us understand why he's relating to Shawn.
Absolutely. It's so funny because moving into the stray metaphor, we can talk back about it. But I had the question. I was like, what is it about Shawn that Turner connects to? What is this history? Because he says something. He's like, I know what it's like to...
Yeah, we would also like to know why you know what it's like.
Yeah. And I was like, have you seen this before? Have you been this kid before? Like, what is it specifically that Turner is connecting to? And I was going to save this for later, but I can say it now because it's relevant. I also, seeing this episode and seeing how Turner moves and how they create this bond between Shawn and Turner's just not giving his due. Like, as a kid, he's just not. It's like the way that they create this bond and the way that they make this decision in this episode, I was like, I watched it and was like, this relationship was not given the respect it deserves.
And you know what? Wait for it.
Yeah.
Because that's all season 3 is their relationship. Which, in all fairness, like, obviously they're in a position where they have to do that now. But, like, to your point, it would have been nice if there was just a little bit more development. If this didn't feel like hey, we need a twist for the season finale last minute.
Well, no, I'm not even talking about, I'm talking about in general, knowing when the last time we see Turner is.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's like when I see this episode, I realize why.
Oh, just the whole arc of his character. Yes. Yeah, he played such a huge role in this season and next season.
Yeah.
Only to be one of those characters that just disappears.
That they just kind of write off, and it's like, no, he deserved much more than that.
Yeah.
Based on this episode alone,
Sure.
like this is like one of those things where it's like, even if he didn't come back next season, you would want a grounding reason as to what happened and where we go from here.
And if you just started watching Boy Meets World from the later parts from the senior year on, you would have no idea Turner was ever
That's what I'm saying.
there. So it's just really a shame.
So going back to the stray metaphor.
Yeah.
What is it? Because I thought what is interesting about that is it was really funny when they first, like, you hear the dog yipping and everything. I was like, oh god, Shawn went and bought a puppy, and like now he's doing this whole thing where it's like he has a dog and he's hiding it from the Matthews. I thought that's where we were going from it, but then when Corey gets up and it's just Shawn looking out the window, I was like, oh no, they're watching a dog outside. And what was even crazier is I like how they show the different viewpoints of the same thing, the same, like, you know, it's like two sides of the same coin. Where it's like he's like, oh, that's dog. He's like so happy he has his freedom. And then Corey's like, he looks alone. And he looks like he needs a home. And I was like, both of those things can be true.
No, wait. I know that dog. It's a stray. He's probably barking because he doesn't have a home.
He doesn't need a home.
That's what he's saying. I need a home.
No, you didn't hear him right. He's happy out there because he's free.
Like, as an adult, you know both of those
Yeah,
things.
and what I also really like about this is that I feel like kids are consistently told that the way Corey sees the world is the way they're supposed to see the world.
Absolutely.
And it was so nice, and I think even as, and I don't know if this relates or not, but just being a person of color, to hear that, you know, the path that everyone else says is right for you may not be right for you was really impactful as a kid as well, just to know that, like, Shawn was this acceptable free spirit. Yeah. That he wasn't this free spirit that, well, and I mean, I guess you could argue that other, like, people are trying to pin his wings, so to speak, but he has really given so much more freedom than Corey or Topanga throughout the series, and I just thought it was really impactful as a kid.
I agree and I disagree. I agree in the sense that Shawn is a free spirit, and, like, that's shown as, like, a quality of his, but right now the show is still paying that as a negative quality.
Yeah.
And I only say that in the sense that when Shawn goes, he, like, the moment Shawn leaves, the next scene we see is him with the cops. It's not that Turner found him. It's not that, like, Feeney found him. He has been with the cops. That's the next time we see him.
I guess I just thought it was interesting that stray dog conversation was even the writers were like, we want to make sure we have Shawn's point of view and that it's as justified as Corey's point of view.
That I agree with, but remember how you and I talk about this show does a lot of things right, and it's like that last little bit, that little they just can't quite bring it home, and it's unfortunate because you're right. Like, the fact that they even had that conversation where it's like the two of them are showing the different sides of a situation, and bringing their own baggage into the purpose of it. I thought that was great. But then the fact that the next time we see Shawn, he's being brought to Turner's by the cops, it kind of undercuts Shawn's want for freedom.
Yeah. What's also really interesting is that when you think about this stray dog metaphor, that's kind of what the whole show is asking us as an audience to do, is to see things from two different perspectives.
Absolutely.
Every character, you have to think about, well, yeah, I can see Kat's point of view, but I can also see Jonathan's point of view. I can see Amy's point of view, I can see Alan's point of view. And forcing us to, like,
Turner and Feeney,
muddle through those gray areas of life where it's really kind of a conversation of ethics, and this is where Boy Meets World shines.
Honestly, I think that if we were to do like if we had the time, I would say, I would love to do kind of like a Good Place type analysis of Boy Meets World. And what I mean by that is, if you've ever seen The Good Place, every storyline they do, they kind of link to an ethics philosopher, and like what, you know, the decisions that you actually mean, and like why this person's viewpoint is valid for what they're fighting for.
Yeah. And
I would love to do that, because
someone who has more time and research capabilities, make that podcast.
Oh, absolutely. We'll listen to it.
Yeah. We'll promote it. We'll give you guys some free ads.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be definitely someone else do that.
But like, no, it's really great because I do feel that you're right. It's like it's asking us these ethical questions, which is part of the whole world aspect of Boy Meets World. It's like, yeah, things seem simple and you feel like you know what you would do in a situation, but what do you do in this situation? Or who do you judge in this situation?
Yeah.
I mean, because
there's no right or wrong. There's no villain. Well, maybe Chet. But there's no real bad guy here to blame for all of this. You really have to force yourself to think, well, would I do it any differently? And if so, why?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, and even with Chet, like, let's go with Chet. Chet is like he's understood to be the bad guy, but we don't. They make him a lovable character. They could have made Chet an abusive father. They could have made it. They don't do that. What they just say is this guy is ill-equipped to
And
be
he
a
gets
parent.
laughs every scene he's in.
And that's what I'm saying. Is like I think there's something very interesting about the fact that they show Chet as someone who's constantly trying to escape responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because they could have made him a villain. They could have made it a place where Shawn,
Ike Turner.
Yeah, they could have
Joe Jackson.
Yeah, they could have made it where like Shawn needed to be removed.
Yeah.
You know, and like he needed to find a place, but that's not what they do. There's no
all of this
misconception that Chet doesn't love Shawn.
Yeah.
It's just that Chet doesn't feel like he's the parent that Shawn needs, and in a almost altruistic, almost selfish way, he's like, you do it.
Yeah, and I mean, really, all of this episode is asking us to analyze choices.
Yeah.
And even Chet, who, as much as I can't understand any of his motivation, I'm forced to put myself in his shoes and figure out why is it that he doesn't want to come home and take care of his kids. So it's just a real complex...
Not only that, but let's just talk about the phone call from Chet. And how
he waited 3 weeks to make a phone call.
Well, he waited 3 weeks to make a phone call, which is a problem. But what I'm talking about specifically is they go, well, I think you should say this. I think you should tell this to Shawn himself.
Wait,
he goes,
oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and he goes, if I know my son, I just did.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, what that says is he does know Shawn. You know, it's like he understands his kid. It's not the qualities that we would like, and he doesn't do it in the way that makes us feel comfortable.
But he also what he knows of Shawn is that when two adults are talking or having a serious conversation, there's a kid listening. Yeah. So what he knows is that whatever arguments that he and his mom had, Shawn was hearing it. Shawn was hearing his mom complain about him not having a job, him not being able to keep money and whatever. And that's all the things that he's like, this is why I can't come home. Because I'm not that guy.
And in a way, he's kind of a better parent, at least in that aspect. Because well, no, I was talking about than the Matthews. Because very often they do talk. And I mean, like, think about everyone else in that kitchen. They were talking as if they were in some bubble.
Yeah.
As if, like, you know, the kids don't have any understanding that that real world consequences are happening right now. And the fact that Chet's like, look, I mean, you can all pretend like you're making this decision in a bubble, but if I know my kid, and if I know kids at all, they're listening. They're understanding that bigger things are going on. And, yeah.
There's the phone call that we're talking about, like I said, it happens 3 weeks, and when Alan's talking to Chet, he's not that reasonable guy that was talking to him last time. It was just like, oh, hey, you're going to come back soon. He's like, hey, are you planning on supporting this kid? Are you planning on coming back anytime soon? Give me any update. Where are you? Oh, I'm either in Indiana or Georgia. He couldn't even give them the location of where he was.
Because he doesn't want to be found.
And it's just one of those things where I can understand Alan so much in that moment.
Oh, there's no part of me that's judging Alan in this because I get Alan.
Yeah.
And I even get, again, for me, when Alan's like, dude.
Yeah.
He's like, dude. And Amy's like, we'll make it work. Again, it's like, it's very true to their characters where Alan's just like oh my God, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
And Amy's like, I am just as angry as you are. But I will say to Amy's point, she's probably like, the kids are upstairs. We don't want to get too loud. We'll deal with this.
And you know what's funny is that Amy seems to be the one most concerned about Shawn.
Absolutely.
How he's feeling, if he's comfortable. She's the one writing S's on cartons. She's the one's like, okay, we can work with this. We can figure out a way to make this happen. And seems to have Shawn in mind even more so than Corey and Eric sometimes, even more so than Phoenix
because she
sometimes.
understands, like, I think very much, kind of like even Turner. It's like she understands that everyone else is looking at the situation that Shawn's in, and they're not thinking about Shawn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like everyone's just like, Corey's like, oh, it's like a fun sleepover. It's only temporary. Alan's like, oh my God, this is costing me so much money. How much longer will it last? Eric's like, this is a minor inconvenience. I'm stressed about this. Amy and even Turner are the only ones who are like, but how is this affecting the main person in this? It's like, because Chet hasn't called back, but Shawn's used to Chet. But what does it feel like to know that Chet hasn't checked in 3 weeks?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, we know that you have anxiety, but what about the dude whose parent it is?
I wonder if Amy feels like a maternal instinct. It would have been really nice almost to have, like, and I'm
her have a moment.
They can only shove so much into like 22 minutes or whatever it is with commercials, but it's to have her and Alan have a conversation where she's like, you know, I don't understand how Verna could do that to him, or something like that. Like, as a mother, I sympathize and I want to be there for him. Some kind of conversation where they try to, like, separate from the kids around,
but very different. I'm sorry, very much like what you and I talked about last episode. I was like, I feel like you're not wrong in the fact that I wish they had shown this, but I also feel like Amy she's never judged Verna. And that tells me that there's something else there. You know what I mean? She didn't go, how could Verna do this? She was just like, all right.
Or, I mean, obviously, it's a kid's show.
Yeah,
because exactly. Even just like I wonder what Chet did to Verna conversation. Like,
but again, I think
these are all kind of unspoken.
Yeah, they're unspoken, and I feel that, at least from Amy's point of view, she's aware. You know what I mean? It's just like, I really wish we had gotten some scenes that, like, expounded on that, but that would involve them writing more dialogue for Amy. So.
Yeah, exactly. Or if, like, gosh, if this was how the season was planned on ending, instead of, like, we're going to have 2 random Griff episodes and then jump right into this. They really could have built it up a little nicer.
Some things in and out. You're right.
But
what is interesting is, speaking of, like, sprinkling things in and out, it is interesting that we've talked about this. For most of this season, Shawn talks about his mom.
Yeah.
In a way that we weren't used to. We were like, you and I were like, I guess she's still around. I guess Verna's still around. Like, we kept waiting for the shoe to drop, because we're like, when does she leave? Because as far as we can tell, she's a prominent person in Shawn's life.
Sure.
Much more than you and I remembered.
Yeah.
And I think that, in a way, I agree that they didn't do it properly, but in a way, they did kind of set it up to be like, no, this is a huge vacuum in Shawn's life. And Chet's like, well, this is as usual. Even the Matthews are like, well, this isn't outside the realm of comprehension. But what does that feel like to be a teenager and your parents just disappear and leave you with other people?
Sure.
Even if they're people that you like and get along with.
Yeah.
All right, so...
Well, real quick, before we move away from that phone conversation, Amy runs to get to the phone, and Chet's like, oh, Amy, you sound out of breath. Did I catch you in the middle of something?
Again, very Chet, very inappropriate.
Speaking of that, I would like to also bring our attention to the first time we see Kat and John when she has a bag.
Yeah, yo.
That she's like, hey, sorry I ran off this morning. They've been fucking.
Yeah.
Sorry I ran off this morning. I left this bag.
Sorry I took off so early this morning.
Oh, that's okay. Look, you left this in my place last night.
I know, silly.
Leave it in the bag, please.
All right, I've got others. You could keep this at your place.
I wouldn't know where to put it.
You don't have to get scared every time I leave something at your place.
I'm not scared. I'd be scared if I started wearing it.
And the entire time, I'm fucking Brad Pitt watching it. What's in the bag? What's in the bag?
Well, so I'm with you because, to correct you a little bit, Turner brings the bag.
Okay,
and he's like, hey, you left this at my place. And she looks into it and she's like, oh, well, I have plenty of those. And you're like, okay, again, what is this? What's in the bag? And then what they kind of hint at is the only reason why we get a little bit of hint of what it is when he goes, I'm concerned about wearing it. And, it's just like a and it's just like all right, so we know it's an article of clothing. What article of clothing? We don't know just yet, but it fits into a brown paper bag. And she has lots of them.
You know what? I must have not heard that line because I was thinking, like, is it a diaphragm? Is it.
I thought, again, all of their dialogue makes it sound like it could be anything. Yeah. I was like, just say it's tampons or, like, whatever. Yeah, but no, maybe. She looks into it and she says something. She was like, well, you can keep this one at your place if that's what you're worried about.
I thought maybe it was a sex toy.
Yeah. And he goes, if that's what you're worried about. And he goes, no, that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about, like, me wearing it or something like that. And I was like, okay, so now I'm assuming it's a thong of some sort.
Some draws.
Yeah. But also, Feeny in that whole interaction, I like it and I don't like it.
So much attention given to this bag. They comment on this so much.
It's so crazy that Feeny would come up and say, hey, you brown bag in there? I thought we were having lunch today. And you're like, of all the things, like, you just comment on the fact that, and he's like, no, this isn't my lunch. She goes, it's mine. You could have left it there. You guys 100%. Are adults. I would have asked any other questions. And then he's like,
this is not my lunch. We're still on.
Exactly.
That's it.
I wouldn't have tried anymore. Well, what's it? What is it? Yeah. Why do you have it? Tell me more about the contents of this mystery brown bag. And so, also, they're in the middle of the hallway. It's just like, y'all couldn't do this in his office?
Yeah, you couldn't do this anywhere else. Hey, Turner, let's step inside your classroom while no students are there. Let's talk about this.
Parking lot. Like, there are plenty of places you could do this. I just thought it was hilarious. But, so let's talk about Jonathan and Kat.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, they're saying that they've been dating for 4 months, which I thought this has been going on for way longer.
I mean, it's definitely been happening for the majority of the school year, but we talked about this. Maybe they've been dating for 4 months, but they was fucking earlier.
Yeah, they were hooking up too. So they've been together for 4 months, and Kat's just like, are you going to marry me or not? Real flat out. Like, not even like...
I will say, I looked at it, and I was like... they kind of hint at it and even mention it. I was like, well, she is older.
How old did they say they are?
They don't say how.
They're the same age.
She just goes, we're the same age, which proves my theory that she's getting older, and she's like, I don't have time to mess around. If we're serious, we're serious, and I just want to know if that's a path we're on.
Listen to me. You are a good, gentle man, and I could spend the rest of my life with you and have children with you and know they will always be taken care of. When you hold me, I feel safe. Now, if you can't say the same to me with the same feeling, then don't let me give any more of my heart to you.
Which, by the way, let's give a round of applause for Kat for handling this situation like a damn adult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's not... Like, she was the most upfront, honest, just like, here, this is what I'm saying. Either you feel it or you don't. And when she got the hint that he didn't, she was just like, good luck to you.
Oh my God, that petty, good luck.
She wasn't mean. She was just like, you know what? Best of luck to you. And
well, what I thought was really interesting about that good luck, it said a lot because he was like, good night, Kate. It's just like, we'll
talk about this.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. She was like, nah.
You gave me your answer.
You gave me your answer. And I'm cool with it. She was like, I'm not even going to fight you on it or anything like that. What's even better is it's actually a great segue because the cop being like, good night, Mrs. Turner.
Yeah.
It's first of all, if you've just had that conversation, it's like the twist of the night.
Yeah.
And then Shawn being like, congrats. Oh, congratulations, kind of being funny. And she's like, it's actually still Miss Tompkins. And again, that it tells you everything you need to know. She's giving you her resolution in that moment. And it's actually pretty powerful.
And you know what? Like, I really have to give it to Boy Meets World because that is such like a subtle adult thing that as a kid watching the show, you wouldn't even pick up on the gravitas of that conversation or like what all those subtle little comments meant. But they were able to really, within the few lines of dialogue they gave her, like sum up all of those feelings and emotions and all of the like the weight of what this means for the relationship. This is a good episode.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is, one, I was a little upset because it's the constant men can't commit trope.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my
Sure.
God, he was just, but I will say, the fact that it started off with him being like, you have nice eyes, and her being like, don't say that if you can't marry me, and him like, you don't know how to take a compliment at all.
But that also seemed, again, after 4 months, that seemed kind of...
I'm not disagreeing, because I wrote down 4 months.
Yeah.
Like, that does seem a bit
Like, if
strange.
they had been like, hey, we've been dating for almost a year now, like, something like that, like, hey, we've been dating the whole school year or something, but 4 months.
But
that's one season. That's winter. That's cuffing season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's why I wrote down, I was like, well, she is older,
Yeah.
so there's that. And
Do you think they're in their late 20s or early 30s?
I think they're supposed to be in early 30s. I would have given them early 30s.
You know what? If it was just Jonathan being a bachelor, I would think 28, 29.
I
But
agree.
they're talking like they're 34.
I think he's like, and there's honestly, if we're talking about like him having the maturity to take in a teenager, I'm hoping he's like 30. You
30,
know what I mean?
Probably 30.
I'm thinking 30, 32.
But that's the thing. That's what's so great about Jonathan in this episode. Is because it's not that he's not ready for commitment. Because he, by taking in Shawn, takes on such a larger commitment than he would have in a relationship like that. He was ready for a different kind of relationship.
But I think what's interesting, at least how I saw it, was that was exactly what Kat picked up on as well. Because she goes, are you ready? Basically, can you commit to something?
Yeah.
Meaning, can you commit to me? And when Shawn came in, he was like, remember, the cop was there.
This is also not the first time that Shawn has interrupted two of them.
No, not at all. But what I'm saying is, when Shawn shows up with the cop and the cop's like, is it true he's staying with you? He goes, yes, it's true. I have like ownership of him. She's like, oh, so it's not that you can't step up when you need to. It's that you're choosing not to with me. And I think that was I think that was honestly what made her be like, no, it's still Miss Tompkins. Because it's not that you can't do it or that you are overwhelmed by the idea of responsibility.
Yeah.
It's that you do it when you want to do it and you don't want to do it. And that's okay.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm sure with Kat being around Jonathan all the time, Jonathan being so intertwined with this whole relationship with Shawn and the Matthews, she knows exactly what's going on.
That's what I'm saying.
She knows what's happening. And this episode, the more we're talking about it, I am more on board with it. It's just so well written.
I will say it's well written. I mean, because it's definitely, as you said, we get several viewpoints. And I like what you point out. It's like, for every single character, we are able to look at the duality of it. It's just like Turner's not wrong to be like, yo, it's been 4 months, slow down. But she's not wrong to be like, I mean, honestly, I'm asking you if you, like, I can see myself having kids with you, and I know that they'd be taken care of. But don't let me give any more of my heart if you can't say the same.
Which is so, like, fair. It's such a
fair
thing.
It's fair.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, I understand who you are, and I see all these things, and yeah, I kind of hit you out of nowhere with it. But honestly, all I need to know is don't let me give any more of me if you can't say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And it's completely fair because not only does he not say anything, but when the time comes for him to actually show responsibility, he takes it with very little hesitation when it comes to Shawn.
Yeah.
And that gives her everything she needs.
And it almost felt like Turner had been readying himself to make this decision. Like, he had kind of like...
Yeah.
Had been considering it for a while. He just seemed so ready for it.
Yeah. But what I do think... All right, so now let's talk about Turner and Shawn.
Yeah, so, I mean, especially... We get to this point where... You know, I don't even think we could finish that because we need to talk about Shawn's reaction to hearing the Chet phone call. Because what Shawn says is, he's like, that's fine. If none of you want me, I don't need you. Him feeling like I'm abandoned, no one wants me at all. Only to have Turner be like, no, I want you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that, for Shawn, was enough for him. I think for whatever reason, he was able to understand.
So it's really funny. I mean, I like where you're going at because what I liked was there was this almost immediate comfort that Shawn had.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the reason why I wanted to bring up Shawn and Turner anyway is, like, there is something to be said. I mean, of course, it's a TV show. It makes sense. But the idea that Shawn, when he feels in trouble or when he feels alone or whatever, he turns to Turner.
Yeah.
Says a lot. It says a lot about what Shawn thinks about Mr. Turner.
And they really do try to mirror them as much as possible. They're both wearing leather jackets.
No.
They both have great hair.
I would say, no. They're not both wearing leather jackets. In that final scene, I made this note. They're wearing the exact same outfit.
Yeah.
It is a blue top, green pants, and a leather jacket.
Yeah.
Now, they're different versions and different styles, but they are literally mirrored in each other. And I had looked at it and I noticed it, and I was like, I see what you're doing here, and it's brilliant. Because it's subtle. It's not like as obvious as those two yellow sweaters were, but like it is.
I think to answer your question, they were using that subtleness to explain their connection. That
Absolutely.
like they're more alike than even maybe they understand, but they kind of get that.
Well, no, the fact that like when Shawn hears it and runs upstairs, Alan and Amy run after him, but Jonathan runs outside. Like he almost runs upstairs. He goes, "That's not
him.
That's not
it's
him."
kind of showing that he understands Shawn in a way.
And again, I wish we got the understanding as to why. I wish we got a line of dialogue that was like, "I was him," or "My brother was him."
Maybe we're just supposed to understand the way that Jonathan has been this bachelor, and like the more of that whole like just wanting to be free, that all his fears of being tied down in a relationship are kind of mirrored with Shawn's ideas of what a family is and how trapped that makes him feel. Maybe it's just that feeling of being trapped that they were able to relate to. That's less deep than what we wanted Jonathan to go with it, but still enough to kind of pair them.
I think Jonathan even where does he go? He goes, I'm not trying to be your dad. I'm offering you a roof.
Yeah.
And a window to climb out of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Kind of saying like, you'll have a little more freedom with me, but I'm still gonna be on you.
Well, I'm offering you security and consistency. What you do with it, specifically with a window to climb out of, what you do with it, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But I'm offering you a little bit more stability than you would have if you just try to make it on your own, which you and I both know you don't want.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like you don't want to have to make it on your own.
Well, I think he understands, too, that Shawn's grabbing his bags without anywhere to go.
Well, then he thought.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to take off. I'm going to do what Dad does. I'm just going to leave.
Exactly. But, like, I wanted to talk about the first conversation they have in Turner's apartment. Because it's the first time Jonathan really asserts his authority to Shawn.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even when he does it, Shawn's kind of like, he writes it off as a joke. He's like, that's exactly how. But it's so funny because it comes out of nowhere that, like, even as a viewer, a little of me is like, Jonathan's serious and it makes sense, but it's also almost comedic.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like you can understand why Shawn is kind of smirking at it.
Yeah, he's just like, wait, what? Where did this come from?
It's really interesting because Jonathan says a line to Shawn when they're by the tree talking. He's like, I was beginning to feel like I didn't care about anything. And that feeling, I think when Kat confronts him with like, what do you want? I think Jonathan understands there's something, even if it's not this, there's something that I need to help me grow as a person.
Which again goes back to her understanding that it's not that you don't want responsibility.
Yeah.
You don't want what I'm offering. And I get that. But what's funny is it's so kind of to tie that thread in, he specifically says when Shawn is brought by the cops and he's yelling at him, he goes, well, when I see someone I care about.
Yeah.
And so when later on he brings up, he's like, well, I needed something to care about. It's like, I think in that moment he realizes that he cares. And what's crazy is Shawn didn't really hear him the first time he said it. Like when he was like, when I see someone I care about, I was like, whoa, this is a teacher again.
To touch on this point precisely, and I'm going to put some quarters in the jar because I'm going forward.
Yeah, go for it.
But when Shawn joins a cult, not to go too far because we're going to have a lot to say about that episode, but when Shawn joins a cult, Turner says, there's only a handful of people in the world who care about you. And and as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about all these bits of dialogue I've heard Jonathan say to Shawn, and it seems as though him, more than anyone else, almost more than Corey, is constantly communicating to Shawn, I care about you.
Absolutely.
And I feel like Corey has those moments occasionally, but Corey also gets distracted with school and his brother and his girlfriend
Corey's
and all
a
these other
child.
things. He's a kid, yeah. But Turner's the only adult that's like, no, I care about you consistently.
He's verbally saying it.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's even like take on to consideration the call from Chet when they turn around and they realize that Sean's been hearing, and Shawn goes, if none of you if none of you want me, fine. And as an adult, as older individuals, you can look and you like, everything they're doing shows that they care about you.
Yeah.
You're in their house, they're paying for you. But it's like, it's all showing. What he was listening to was what you said. And what you said was, how much longer do I have to carry this burden? And Chet being like, look, I can't carry it anymore. The only person who didn't speak was Jonathan.
Yeah.
So, you're right in the sense that Jonathan understands that Shawn needs it to be said.
Yeah.
The actions and all this other stuff, like even, like, think about very often when the struggle with Corey and being like, oh, do you think people just do this?
Yeah.
You think having a friend like this is just common? I don't think so. I don't think scumbags, but Jonathan says all the things that everyone else tries to show Shawn.
And to your point, I mean, later on we kind of realized that Shawn is kind of a low-key poet. And I really think that words are his love language. And I think
that's so great.
I think that words mean, even though Shawn is not one to have a lot of words mean a lot to him. And the way people talk to him, what they say to him, I really feel like makes a huge impact on him. So I think you're right that Jonathan actually speaking it resonates more than Corey being like, oh, well, we spend quality time together, or Amy, I buy you gifts.
Yeah,
those are his love languages.
Absolutely, he needs the verbal confirmation.
Yeah,
which is funny because when I started laughing while you were speaking was when Jonathan goes, why aren't you this smart in my class? And he goes, well, math isn't my subject.
Yeah, and which was, by the way, because we kind of skipped over that quote, and it's so funny. Shawn's like,
Yeah, women.
What do you know about women?
What do you want to know?
well, what do you want to know?
What do you want to know?
Yeah,
but no, what was funny about me from that is, because again, you were like, words are his love language, and Turner's like, I'm your English teacher.
Yeah.
And then Shawn goes, well, why are you teaching me math? And Turner just looks at him like, are you serious? Like,
yeah.
Do you mean this? Do you honestly not know what I teach? And that, I mean, like, it's just funny because let's just take that for what the show is saying. If Shawn really doesn't like connect that Turner is his English teacher, then it would make sense that...
In all fairness, Shawn just found out what school was for like 3 episodes ago.
You're not wrong.
So, I think, you know what, if you remember being a kid and having to go to school, like, what you really consumed your thoughts with that day had almost nothing to do with what was being taught to you, but it was like the drama your friends were in.
Absolutely.
Or like what was going on with the person you had a crush on. Like, these are the things you focused on in school that consumed you hour by hour. Like, you weren't really...
Well, the older you get, the more you realize that school is mostly socializing.
Yeah.
Forefront, at least when you're that child
Sure.
or that age. And you just don't understand the importance of what you're learning, because to you, what's the most important thing are those social dynamics.
Yeah.
And then, as anyone will tell you, college, especially freshman and sophomore year, that's exactly what it is. Freshman and sophomore year, for the most part, depending on what school you go to and what courses you're taking, it's just like a rehash of everything you should have learned in high school, and then you learning socially how to be responsible for yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what it really is, the first 2 years of college. And that's kind of like, I understand Shawn, like, whenever I think of high school, I don't think about all the classes I took. I think about the friends and the social circles and everything.
Shawn, who cares so much about his friends, who clearly cares about his family, even though it's not something he talks about a lot, you can understand why on the day-to-day, he's like, well, dude, you might as well be teaching math, because, like, I got so much. And also, it's, you're talking, but you're not talking my language.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
When you want to communicate to me, you know how.
Exactly.
But, you know, until you're able to relate what you're teaching in a way that I specifically can understand, and that's the challenge these boys give both Feeney and Turner. It's not enough to say it. You have to say it in a way that we can get it.
Like, I think about early on in this season when Shawn was like, I read the book. And everyone was like, oh. And he's like, yeah. Why? Because they they brought up something specifically that was relevant to him. If you read this book, you won't have to take the test, which is crazy because the test is the way easier version than having to read this book. But you are so averse to taking tests that you're willing to do the harder part.
Yeah.
Which is a perfect segue, test-wise, into the Eric segment.
Which, well, you know what? There's so much silliness about Eric, but you're right. I mean, you kind of talked about how this is really a serious issue of just anxiety and test taking and how it really stresses him out. But what I loved is that we're beginning to see that Feeney-Eric relationship.
Yes.
Where Jonathan's like, where Feeney's like, you can't be so close to your students. Jonathan's like, you're constantly looking out for the Matthews. And he's like, what? Eric, watch your head. And then Eric ducks down.
Eric, lock her. And Eric just like immediately does. And you're right. I didn't think about it, but we are starting to get this Feeney-Eric relationship, which we will all come to love and enjoy. But we also get kind of Feeney's understanding of that balance, because he goes, look, this is an unfortunate consequence of me living next door, but also it's like I can't get away from being attached, but you're right, I'm attached.
Yeah.
And then also Feeney doing that thing where it's like he's teaching, he knows what Eric needs.
Yeah.
And everyone else kind of, or it's played off as like him taking advantage, but in reality he just knows that Eric listens to him and Eric trusts him, and if he were to just be like, you just need to sleep, and
what's really great is that Jason basically says the same thing that Feeney says, but Eric's not in a position to listen to Jason. But when Eric thinks he's like, oh, I'm getting one over on Feeney,
very similar to Shawn, where it's like
totally.
If they think that they're beating the system,
not even that
they will go with it.
If they feel like they're getting a shortcut where they don't have to work as hard, or they're getting some kind of insight, the pop quiz thing, where Shawn was like, we're getting insight here, even though it was just studying for a test. It's one of those things where they need to feel like they're taking the easy way so that they can get.
I don't know if it's that they feel like they're taking the easy way. I think specifically for Eric and Shawn, it's that they feel that the systems that are in place don't work for them.
Yeah.
And like Shawn's like, I'm never going to be that cookie cutter student. And Eric's like, I'm just not a good test taker. Yeah. I'm just not that person. So when you give them something where they can be like, hey, do you want to know how you can get around the system? They're like, yes, because the system isn't made for me. And that's how I see it.
Yeah, I'm realizing why I relate so strongly to Shawn. I'm like, I get it. The system's not for us.
Exactly.
Man.
But no, I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think that they're both like, the system's not made for me. And I'm never going to be a Corey or a Topanga or a Jason.
Yeah.
That's not who I am. I have other talents. I have other skills, which is why when that girl tells Eric that she just doesn't think he's smart enough to get it, he's really insulted, because it's like, yo, I know that, but like, I didn't know it came off that way.
Sure.
And then, which is why, as you said earlier, with Shawn, when Shawn's like, oh, hey, we're getting inside information. No, you're studying.
Yeah.
Like everyone else does, but you needed to go about it a different way. Me telling you to do your homework, you're like, I don't do homework. I'm bad at homework. But me telling you, hey, do you want to like read a paper and like get extra credit?
Yeah. And you know what's really funny, because you were talking about how like Turner and Shawn were like these kind of mirror images, where Turner understands Shawn in a way that like they just relate. It seems as though Feeney's that way with Eric, where Feeney's like, you know what? I know how he learns, and I know what's the best for him and how he can go about getting to that goal in a way that other people, his parents, his friends, don't quite understand. So that mentorship aspect that we're going to see between specifically these four characters so much in the next season, of just them really depending on their mentors to help them through, and the importance of mentors, male mentors who
aren't your father.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. You know why? And I think it's because Alan is Corey's hero.
Yeah.
But Chet is not Shawn's.
Yeah.
And Alan's not Eric's.
It's interesting that these paternal relationships get so much storyline, so much understanding, when maternal relationships are hardly.
It's called Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, like,
But just to even like, not, I don't know, because Topanga never gets a mentor.
That's what I said. What I said. It's
Yeah.
called Boy Meets World,
Yeah.
and she doesn't. And that's kind of one of the downfalls of a character like Topanga and like Amy. They're smart, and because they're smart, they don't need guidance. They don't need someone to
Yeah.
tell them what to do because they get it. And the boys, they need assistance. I mean, think about it again. If you want to talk about to that episode of them. Cheating or what they assumed was cheating.
Pop quiz, yeah.
Turner's like, "Hey, good boys." You know, he's like he treats them like they're puppies,
Yeah.
they're small and they don't know what to do, and it's just like, "Oh, do you even know why he was mad at you?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"No, we don't." But like Topanga's never talked down to that way,
Yeah.
and it's a good thing because what they're saying is she's strong and independent. But the thing about being strong and independent is in a way that Minkus. Remember how Minkus was also someone who was smart and like Mr. Feeney still understood that as smart and as intuitive as you are, there are shortcuts and limitations to what that will get you in the real world. And this is why you need to be taught different things.
Sure.
And I think as Topanga gets older, she's inherently smart, but they use Feeney kind of as her mentor. It's not a direct one-for-one, but whenever she does need that guidance, Feeney is like, no, I understand that you're smart, but you still need to know these things. You need to know that your smarts aren't always going to get you out of a situation.
Well, what's also really interesting about that point is that it seems as though as they expand the student cast, the list of mentors shrinks. You lose Jonathan, and we kind of lose Alan as that mentor as well. Feeney kind of becomes everyone's pseudo-mentor, which why I think he has this kind of grandpa legacy in pop culture of just being everyone's Mr. Feeney, because he really was to everyone on that show. Even Alan and Amy started going to Feeney for advice.
You're right. He stops being Eric's mentor. He goes from being Corey's mentor.
Yeah.
Corey's co-mentor, because his father is one.
Yeah.
And then, again, in the first season, we had Alan and Feeney taking two different approaches, father versus teacher. And then, in this season, Eric and Turner are kind of who Feeney spends most of his time with.
Sure.
But as we get older and as the show gets older, they still want that mentor relationship. But they're like, we can't just have all these mentors coming and going.
Yeah.
We'll just put it all on Feeney. And you're right. I think you're accurate. Because, I mean, I'm not going to go there. But there's one episode in particular that I'm thinking of in the future, so to say, that specifically talks about how even some characters who don't know Feeney that well and don't have this history with him understand his weight and influence as a teacher.
Sure, totally.
Right. Anything else to say about this?
Jason's last episode, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, what's really funny about that is when Jason goes, "That's it, I'm out." Or he said something like this. I was like, "Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because I think
you are out."
I think.
The only other thing I had written here was, do you know what SAT stands for? SAT.
Yeah, again, but it's like what's funny at this point in time is Eric's not. And the way that he is, it's like Eric can always just be explained as being overworked or overthinking it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily dumb, but just overthinking it.
Sure.
And then, the two things I wanted to end on this. One, you're right. This episode had a lot, and I think it's interesting because it sets us up. It sets the show up for what will be the rest of the series. And it sets us up for next season in a different tone. And
it sets us up for more complex story structures, too, which are going to start happening more and more.
But it also gives us that heart in a way that what I love about it is the window is like just such a thing that we keep coming back to. And
just freedom, what it means.
Well, I love how when, the Corey and Shawn are having this conversation, because again, it comes back to Corey and Shawn. And Shawn's like, well, what's it like to be a cat's dog? And he's just like, this is this, and they're having fun with it. And Shawn's like, well, what if I don't like it? And he goes, well, I'll make sure my parents put in a doggy door. And Shawn's like, no, leave a window open. And it's like, that's, again, I don't come through the door.
Yeah.
I do things my way, and just leave a window open.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, it's not only that, but it goes back to what Turner said, which is like, I'm giving you a window. episode.
This is
Oh.
such a great episode. This is you know what? It's this caliber of episode that I think has made us rate some of the other episodes this season really low, because we knew that the potential for this kind of complex story was there.
Absolutely.
And they just were never able to get all the pieces set in place, where they, in this episode, it feels like they really were able to create a really strong script.
It's one of those things where when you watch like an episode like this, it makes you almost forgive everything else, and it makes you think that as a network runner, you watch an episode like this and you're like, there's something there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like in any other, who knows if this show would have like lasted. I mean, like the remake did, which is a thing to prove, but it's like, I don't know if it would have gone as long as it did if it was in the market that it's in right now, or that we have right now with Netflix and everything else. The fact that some showrunner looked at this and was like, you know, honestly, it's not the greatest, but there's something about this show.
And Boy Meets World, I mean, you have to give them credit. Like, they've tried...
They tried everything.
Like 5 different setups for this show.
Yeah.
But then when they were able to get it, when they were able to kind of... They're scientists. They keep messing with this formula. And once they're able to get the formula down, they're great at it.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, they are... You're right. They're mixing and matching a lot right now. Not as much as we need them to with Amy.
Even with like all that Griff stuff, they're still experimenting.
Absolutely. I mean, and the Griff thing is a perfect example.
Yeah.
But we can get into more of this in our next episode, which will be our report card for season 2.
Season 2 recap. Excited for it.
All right. Do you have anything else to say about this episode?
No. It was great.
All right. So, what is the lesson of this episode? What is your feeny talk?
Oh my god. I mean, jeez. Some dogs have to howl at the moon, you know?
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
That's really good. I guess my feeny lesson of this would be what we said earlier: leave a window open.
Yeah.
It's just like do things your own way.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
It's like it's sometimes it's going to be harder. You're going to be unsure about it, but you got to do what you feel is right.
Totally.
You know. So I'm behind that, and I mean, we kind of hit on it, but I really liked how once Turner was like, "How about I give you a place?" He was like, "This just feels right." You know?
Yeah.
It felt more his
and
way.
one thing I do want to say just about this, because we are kind of wrapping up the season, Turner was a new character this season.
Yeah.
And now we're at this episode. You couldn't even take him out of the show without the whole thing crumbling. So, like, just how they were able to really use him this season was really spectacular.
Exactly. Okay. What grade are you giving this?
I'm giving this episode an A. It's an A episode. To me, I feel like, again, this is some of the strongest writing we've seen all season. I felt like most characters, if not all characters, their storylines wrapped up really nicely. Because even like when you talk about like Harley, the Kiner crew, they have Griff now. Like they're set. Their central conflict is gone. So there's no point in bringing them in. Topanga never had a central conflict. So it really just felt like this was the episode that we needed, and they were able to do it in a way that was really, really respectful to all the characters. So.
I mean, we said this before, and I feel like we'll talk a lot about it next episode as well. But I feel like this show could benefit from the Netflix format of like 10, 12 episodes.
100%.
Because what we've done so far is you and I, we've talked a lot about all of the different episodes and how it fluctuates. But it's just like, you had 22 episodes. So not all of them are going to be this.
I wonder if we would appreciate these episodes as much.
Oh, I think we would.
I
think we would, because you and I have talked about forgetting so many of the small
I guess just like having the variety of like a comedic episode versus a more dramatic episode.
True, but you're going to tell me that, what was that one we had where it was just like, I think you gave it like an F.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me that was necessary?
There's been definitely filler episodes. And any network show, like, you're right, that has north of 20 episodes is going to have filler episodes. So, I don't know about 10, maybe 12.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like a 12, 13 even.
Yeah, 13.
It's like, I feel like this, we'll talk about it more next week.
Yeah.
All right, so I have to say, I was going to give this a B. Not just like watching on first imprint, but now that we've talked about it a little bit and we've really talked about like the different ways that it reflects each other. Or sorry, it reflects certain storylines and it sets it up. I agree with you. This is definitely an A episode. It's not like an A plus, but it's an.
You know why? Because it's not as enjoyable of an episode to watch. I think that's what kind of takes it out for me from being like an A plus. Like
for me, it's more of it feels like a continuation of the previous episode, and that's why it's like I feel like if it could stand a little bit more on its own, that'd be fine. But it just relies heavily on the previous one.
Yeah.
So. All right, that's it for the season.
Yeah, guys, we got through season 2, and I've been telling y'all these were the toughest ones. So
so again, let's hold off and talk a little bit more. But homework. Do you have any homework?
Yeah. You know what? I just kind of want to give a big ups to Ice Cube. Ice Cube just released a new record. He has a new song out.
Shut up. How do I not know this?
So good. I'll play some for you and maybe play a little clip for it here too. But
you know the beat so sweet like booty meat. You know the beat so sweet like booty meat. No matter who you meet, you can move your feet. Come through bumping that new funkadelic.
He also released these videos for some of his songs that he has on his new album, was songs like Arrest the President. Like Ice Cube came with NWA style.
I'm happy.
Fierce on this album.
I'm here for that.
But he has some YouTube videos of just him kind of doing like a no audio track, spoken word type of thing of his video. And you're just like, dude, this is the guy who wrote Friday. This is the guy who was putting on the big 3. Like, this guy is killing it in so many aspects. And I feel like his name doesn't come up when we're talking about the Jay-Z's and the Diddy's and the entrepreneurs of the world, but of hip-hop especially. But you would be hard-pressed to find someone with as diverse and as, like, because even, like, when you think about Diddy, like, yeah, he's a great businessman, but as an artist, I don't necessarily know that he has the same reputation or repertoire as Ice Cube. So, I mean, even Boys in the Hood, just everything Ice Cube, I'm just promoting right now. I'm in California, y'all, and I'm repping. You're
killing it.
I'm repping Cube, yay.
Okay, cool, thanks. So mine is 'tis the season, it's the holiday season, and the great debate always comes back on whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, 100% is.
I'm with you, I'm team Christmas movie.
Yep.
But I think everyone deserves the right to argue for themselves, so I'm going to recommend watching Die Hard.
Ooh.
And you know what? I'm going to myself, assign myself the homework, watching Die Hard 2. I haven't watched Die Hard 2 in quite some time.
You know what? There was a period when I watched all the Die Hards in preparation for the one with Justin Long that was going to come out.
Actually, I'm not going to lie. I like that one. That one is pure
like it
fun.
Too. But you know why I think that one is so cool is because the whole idea of, like, technology failing our society and how easy it would be for society to crumble without technology. I think that storyline really resonated because there's a lot of silliness in that movie too.
Yeah, well, that, and then also I think it was, honestly, it kind of not paved the way, but it like preluded The Rock's form of action movie.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because like, it's so ridiculous.
But it's so enjoyable.
But it's enjoyable.
To see a car crash through a helicopter, like, this is why I pay money for a damn movie ticket.
Exactly, because you're like the Die Hard franchise up to that point, it was Die Hard, it was like a serious thing. And we just like...
And he was also a human.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. The Rock has never been, like... I don't know one movie where I'm like, oh, that's just a human being.
You're right.
No superpowers.
Did you ever see Rampage?
I didn't see it.
I'm not gonna lie. Worth watching, but nothing's believable. You're like, oh, so we're just jumping out of helicopters and landing on our ankles.
In Skyscraper, the whole premise of this movie is him doing an impossible jump. Impossible. Someone of his build? No.
But I love it. We're always here with it. But yeah, mine will be to watch Die Hard, the original Die Hard. And then I will watch Die Hard 2. Feel free to join me. Give me your feedback. But you guys have, I will say again, we're going to talk more about this next. You guys have been awesome at like just feedback and letting us know where we mess up and all this other stuff. So thank you for listening to Bro Meets World. Remember, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, all of the places that you listen. Make sure to leave us a rating. Make sure that you reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, all at Bruh Meets World. You can find me on Twitter at Extra Siege. That's XTRACEEJ.
You can find me at BraverMe, at .braver.me, or you can find me with Siege about to go see Spider-Man in like an hour.
Oh yeah, we're about to see this Spider-Man movie.
Black Spider-Man, y'all. It's time.
I'm hearing it's like I'm just hearing really good things. So give us the feedback on that as well. All right, remember to dream,
try,
and do some good.
Yeah.
Later, bros.
Later.